I think that the most beneficial thing that you can do for yourself is to find your tribe and a mentor that is doing what you want to do at the next level. It's really easy, especially early on. It's easy to kind of fall in and follow. So make sure that you fall in and follow with a crowd that's going to actually advance your life, as opposed to somebody that's going to either hold you back or maybe even cause some issues.
Welcome to the Military Bottom Line podcast, where we learn from veterans and those currently serving how to make the most out of a military contract. We're here to motivate, inspire, and help you leverage your service to positively impact you professionally, personally, and financially during your military career and beyond. Welcome to episode 40 of the Military Bottom Line podcast. Today on the show, I have Roman Clark. Roman has been in the Navy for just about 12 years now and has seen great success. He's done very well for himself, was able to achieve E6 nearly within his first contract, and that's kind of just paved the way, and he's decided that based on his success, he's in it for the long run. And throughout the episode, we talk about different things that he's done. He's kind of had a unique run where he spent all 12 years living in Europe, a couple deployments here and there, and a couple unique billets. But one of the things that we talk about the most is how he is using the military to pursue F.I.R.E, financial independence, retire early, for him and his family, where he's hoping to not really have to rely on any kind of job after he retires in roughly 8 years. So I think he's got a lot to offer. Especially from the mistakes that he's learned through the military, through his financial journey, and how he's kind of turning it all around to really benefit him and benefit his family. So I hope you guys enjoy the show and stay tuned. What's going on, Roman? Thanks for joining me today.
Hey, brother. Good afternoon and good morning from Belgium.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm excited for this. Definitely a pretty significant time difference that we're working with here. So, I just enjoyed a nice breakfast, and I'm sure you're getting ready for dinner pretty soon.
Yeah, I've already had snack, man. I appreciate you working with a time difference, though.
Absolutely, man. I know we've connected a little bit online, and that's how I'm finding most of you guys these days. And so it's been awesome to kind of see what you're doing, hear about what you're doing, and hear a little bit about your career. But for the listeners, I'd love to kind of like back up a little bit and hear a little bit about yourself and where you grew up and how you found yourself to join the Navy in the first place.
Sure. Awesome. So my name is Roman, and I've been in the Navy about 12 years. It's coming up on 12 and a half now, active duty the entire time. And I joined out of Michigan. However, I've actually been stationed over here in Europe for all 12 plus years.
Wow.
So yeah, I joined like a lot of people just because I didn't have a whole lot of forward motion. I graduated in 2007 and spent like a year of life, a little bit drifting, thought about going to college, didn't really take the leap, didn't want to get into debt. And I had a buddy that was joining the Air Force, and my stepdad was kind of putting it in my ear that maybe I should look at the military. And, to go along with the drifting, just had kind of low self-esteem, felt stagnant, and I wanted to do something. And it seemed like this was at least something for whatever it would or wouldn't be. So I went and talked to a warrant officer recruiter from the Army first.
Okay.
And they didn't really have anything that I was looking for. At that time, I thought the legal field was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So I went across the hall to the Navy, and the recruiter told me, you can't join in the legal field, but you can be this thing called a yeoman. And eventually a yeoman. Yeah. So a yeoman is just basically an admin specialist. I'm not sure what the correlation is in the Marine Corps, but yeah, just admin.
Okay. Right on.
And so, yeah, I initially started because I wanted to do something and eventually maybe tie that in with the legal field.
Nice. Yeah. I think a couple episodes ago, this guy Jamie on, and he made a good point that like people either join because they know exactly what they want and they're going to use the military to get there, or they join because they have no idea what they want and they need like experiences to direct them. So right. I think you and I fell in the same category. Like, what the heck am I supposed to do? Let's go try this out.
Yeah, I was definitely in the latter. I actually went to military school for high school, to a boarding school down in Indiana for my last 3 years and graduated out of there. And when I graduated, I thought, there's no way that I want to go to the military after, keep my hair in regs
Yeah.
and shaving every day. And, we would march together to breakfast, do this thing called parade once a week, really very structured. In fact, more so even than I found in the military. So I thought, no, it's not for me. A few people, recommended like the service schools. I said, no way, I'm going to go to college. And then a year later, I found that the structure that I had there is probably something that I still needed.
Yeah. Yeah. That's wise of you to recognize, because not most people, I feel like they experience the structure and they say, screw this, despite it probably being better for them. So,
yeah.
So right on. All right. So you joined as a yeoman. So you kind of went in as an admin specialist. I know, I mean, it sounds straightforward, but admin specialist, that's a pretty broad area, so like what has your career looked like from the job perspective, and where has it taken you, and what have you done?
Sure. Well, I didn't know this at all, like when the recruiter sold it to me, right? But it's actually a pretty cool rate, and it's not like high speed or fancy or flashy like a lot of the jobs out there, but it's pretty versatile in where you can go. So I actually started as a support guy for an explosive ordnance disposal mobile unit out of first in Italy, and then we moved to Spain. And so these are like the military bomb squad guys, and I was their admin support. So making sure I took care of their pay, awards, travel, and making sure they were, ready to do what they should be focusing on, which is the fight, as opposed to, keeping their record square, keeping their pay square, making sure their family and housing and those sorts of things are taken care of back home.
Yeah. That's an interesting point, is because like I've, a lot of admin people that I've met, while their job specifically is, like you said, it's not the sexy, cool guy stuff, but in a similar situation where you are in support of those people that do the cool stuff, it lends itself to you being, there for unique opportunities that, an admin guy attached to something not as unique, is just straight desk, like the whole time. And you don't really get to see that kind of, that window into what other parts of the military do. So,
what's actually happening on the front lines.
So you ended up in Europe like right out of the gate.
Yeah, I didn't ask for it. In fact, because I was from Michigan and our boot camp is in Great Lakes, right? I asked them to keep me there in Great Lakes or send me back to Great Lakes after A school, because I wanted to be close to my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife. And that's really the only direction I gave. I said, I really just want to go back to Great Lakes, East Coast at the worst, right? Because then I'm a short flight. And then they gave me a set of orders, and they said, you're going to Italy, and we're giving you a promotion when I graduated. And, I had a choice in that I didn't have to take the promotion, but the orders were pretty much non-negotiable, and ended up being like one of the best things that has happened for us.
Wow. So at that point, you're like, okay, let me seal the deal with my wife so she can come with me, or then girlfriend, so she can come with me, or how did that play out?
Yeah, that didn't follow too long after. We actually had like a deal, right? We were going to wait 5 years. And then after 5 years in the military, we were planning on getting married. But we definitely fast tracked that.
A long time to wait. It is, long distance.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, especially long distance. So we ended up getting married. I went to Italy without her. But then I had an opportunity to come back to Virginia on a training mission for a week. And we went ahead and did a courthouse wedding. It was just less than a year after I joined. So
cool. Okay. I'm curious, because I think even if people join, everybody joins for different reasons, but even if one of the top reasons that somebody joins is for like the travel and the adventure, once you get hit with those orders saying, hey, you're going to be sent to Italy for the next 3 years, that's like, that still can be difficult to wrap your head around. So like 3 years is a long time to go live abroad. What was your attitude and mindset with that?
Yeah. So, I was 19. I didn't know what to expect, but at that time it did sound kind of like an adventure. And after I got, past the initial shock, I was, of course, excited to see what the rest of the world is. I grew up in a really small town. We got one stoplight it's called Carson City, Michigan. And the stoplight is a blinking yellow for half the time. So it was exciting.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. And was it Sigonella or where in Italy?
Yeah. So my first orders were to Sigonella. I was there for 2.5, 3 years. And then I spent the last year or two with the same unit after we home port shifted to Rota, Spain.
Cool. I mean, I've heard good things about both of those locations. So from what I understand, it sounds like you lucked out, really. Like there are far worse places to be stationed.
Oh, for sure. A few people go there that actually like make the most out of the experience and don't want to get back as soon as they can. And we're one of them. In fact, after I home port shifted up to Spain, I had an opportunity to then move back down to Sigonella, and we did another 3 years there with a defense courier station. So yeah. Wow. And then back to Spain after that. So we're just kind of hip hopping across Europe.
Yeah, dude, not bad. And I don't know, for the people that haven't been to Europe, like to be stationed abroad where Europe is so easily, traveled for like a short weekend, long weekend, you can see a lot of Europe in a short amount of time. So I'm envious of you.
For sure. This last year, of course, travel's been dampened a little bit, but once they open it back up, Paris is a 2-hour drive away. London is about a 3-hour train ride from where I'm at in Belgium right now. So that's pretty great.
Yeah, that's awesome. As far as housing goes, like, I've never been stationed in Europe. So do they have like on-base housing, or you just go out in town and find an apartment? How does that work?
So most bases will have on-base housing. Depending on the installation, it may be mandatory, or sometimes they'll be at such a capacity where it's not. So both times that we lived in Sigonella, we were in on-base housing, it was actually one of the coolest aspects of that place, because it's a really like small town community in that housing complex that is a little bit of what we were used to inside of this big, broad unknown that is Europe. And then in Spain, both times we lived out on the economy because they just have a smaller housing footprint. Sure. So it was authorized.
Cool. I'm curious. Sigonella is pretty far south, right?
Yeah.
So
it's in Sicily. So under the boot on the island of Sicily.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Very far south. I've been to northern Italy, and I feel like it was pretty easy to communicate. But from what I understand, the farther south you go in Italy, the less English they speak. Is it? Yeah. Is that true? Like, was that a barrier for you, or because it's still a military town, there's still plenty of English speaking?
A bit of both. So don't quiz me on it, but we definitely learned like some conversational Italian basics while we were in Italy each time. But around the base, certainly a lot of people spoke English, and it was easy enough to learn enough Italian to get around to where, like, if we got stuck or needed to order some food or need to go shopping or whatever, it definitely didn't really hinder us from getting around and having fun.
Cool. How was your wife felt about it all? And now you have one kid at least, right? Like, you're full-fledged, have your family living abroad. How's that being balanced?
So it was an adjustment really for all of us. We had to learn not only how to be a married couple, but we were young. We were 19 and 20 when we got married. Yeah. So married young, moved her out to Italy, and on top of being newlyweds, we're in a new country, a new lifestyle, right? Because the military lifestyle is its own thing in itself. So a lot of new, and I'm a lucky guy that she's stuck with me through it all. As I grew up and matured into it, she's pretty much been mature about it the whole time. Super supportive, and now she loves it just as much as I do. And the decisions to stay in Europe have always been joint ones.
Awesome. How do you? Did you? At this point, you're in your third contract, maybe in fourth?
I'll be signing my third shortly.
Okay.
No, I'm in my third. I'll be signing my fourth shortly.
Cool. And what?
They're blurring together.
12 years, I imagine. What do you like? How are you making those decisions to kind of like? Did you just assume like 20 years? Or it's just kind of like one day at a time, and however you're feeling that day that calls for your signature. Like, how are you deciding to continue?
The first time around, it was definitely kind of like fly by the seat of our pants whether or not we wanted to stay in. And we did consider after the first 4-year enlistment getting out. It was actually, I guess, the first one was 5. I graduated as an honor graduate out of my A school. So what they do is they'll offer you a promotion, right? They'll give you E4, but they'll tack on an extra year. So I guess that was actually a 5-year contract once I accepted that.
Interesting.
At the end of that, we considered going home. I hadn't finished out my degree at that point. So, the idea of going to college and starting a profession outside the military was there, but we were having so much fun. And in the first By the time the first contract was done, I was just shy of being selected for E6. That came shortly after that. So
Hey, your
we
first
had,
contract, E6?
yeah, we had seen,
Wow.
it was a few months after I reenlisted.
Nice.
Yeah, we had been seeing success. We were having a good time together. We were having a good time with the Navy, and it just made sense to keep at it. And then, once I made Chief E7, it was in the books, right? This is what I do. This is my profession. And, like I said, we're having fun, and I feel like I'm still providing value and getting value out of it. So we're in for the long haul, man.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm curious. I mean, like being in Europe, are you still, I mean, you're not really on a ship. Like other Navy guys I've spoken with, they end up in Norfolk and they're like stationed on a ship, and then they go on deployments here and there. But have you been on a ship at all? Do you have to deploy in your current billets? Like how is that aspect of your career taking form since you're kind of in an unusual spot over in Europe?
Yeah, so I have luckily been able to get to a ship. I feel like you probably can't call yourself a real sailor until you've deployed on a big floaty gray thing. My first two tours were not on a ship. The first one was technically sea duty because it was a mobile unit, so I was deployable, and in fact, just unfortunately, I see it. Unfortunately, missed the deployment to Afghanistan because we got pulled off of that to home port shift up to Spain instead. So what we have is like sea shore rotation, and sometimes sea duty is not necessarily a ship. It's just somewhere that you'd be deployable. So after my first sea, then I went to shore as a defense courier out of out of Sigonella again. Then I finally got to the ship. I was deployed off the USS Kearney. They were home ported in Rota, Spain as well. So I did 3 years with them. And then just after I left, they headed back to the States.
So you said two things. Well, one you've said a couple times. And the other you've said at least once that I want to touch on. You've said home port shift a couple times. I assume that's a Navy term because I haven't heard it before. What is that exactly? And yeah, just kind of like talk on that because I have no idea what that is.
Yeah, sorry. Just let me know if I use any
no, it's good.
like Navy lingo. I feel like it's that way with all the services. That we just feel like it's ingrained in our vernacular. We don't even think about it.
Yeah.
So your home port is just where you're based out of. So when I joined EOD Moby today, they were based out of Sigonella, Sicily, and about halfway through my tour, they changed their home port. So now they're based out of Rota, Spain. So that's a home port shift. We just moved our headquarters up there, and that's where we deployed out of from then on.
Gotcha. So like your whole unit essentially moved from Italy to Spain.
Exactly.
Okay. That sounds like a big pain.
It's pretty admin centric, so it was a great learning process.
Okay. Right on. What, I mean, is that over the course of a year, or is it like all of a sudden over a week, everything's moved?
Yeah, it's definitely done in phases. Thinking back, it was probably over the course of like 6 to 9 months.
Okay.
And then, for a ship, it would be about the same, like about a 6 to 9 month process. Although it's a little easier to move an entire ship because you can load most of the people up on the ship, and then you just have to worry about moving families and stuff.
Yeah. And the other term you used a couple times was defense courier. What is that exactly?
So this is another kind of like cool little intricacy of the yeoman profession in the Navy, and it's actually a joint undertaking. So there was Air Force and Army guys that I worked with as well. But there's just some physical material that has to have what's called two-person integrity at all times, or be locked in a really secure facility. So we were the folks that did that. We'd take material that was escorted from the States over to Europe, and then from Europe, either deliver it to whatever the customer was, whoever the end user of that classified like physical material was, or move it onto Fifth Fleet, which is like the Middle East region.
Interesting. So is this like you're walking through airports with a briefcase handcuffed to your wrist kind of thing? Like, I mean, it's like the movies.
That's definitely the idea of it. It's not at all like the movies.
Yeah, sure.
Without getting into like the operational parts of it, just for operational security, it's way more boring. And
it always
but
is.
It's important. Yeah. And I got to travel a ton. I was leaving for 2 or 3 days at a time, pretty much every week. And then, you'd be able to buy that time back with, longer weekends or weekends throughout the week or whatever. So it was a very cool billet.
Nice. Is that something you volunteered for?
Not at all. No, in fact, I had asked to go back to Italy to a command task force, which just in my pipeline, it made sense as the next move if I was trying to, become a little bit more proficient in my rate and maybe make rank. And then 3 months out, I called that command task force and asked for my sponsor because I hadn't reached out. And they're like, "Hey, man, sorry your detailer didn't tell you, but we traded you. Somebody else couldn't get a clearance over at the Defense Courier Station. So
wow.
Since I was clearance eligible, they shifted me over there. So I didn't really have a say, but like many things, it was definitely a silver lining that it worked out way better than what I probably was originally going to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a worthwhile thing to keep in mind is that, like, whether it just be generally in life or in the military specifically, you might have a plan, things change, things happen, and they get sent on, you get sent on a different route. So remaining open-minded and flexible is critical to, some level of happiness and contentment through it all.
Yeah, I don't know if they use this in the Marine Corps now, but we say semper gumby.
Oh yeah.
You got to be flexible, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So then you're traveling all around doing this defense courier thing while your wife is essentially living alone in Europe.
Well, that was the cool thing about that little military housing community that I told you about is, it's definitely hard being away from family, but we had our own little displaced family of other military folks that we could walk 2 blocks over and hang out with them and their kids. So yes, she was by herself. But and of course she's had jobs of her own along the way as well.
Yeah. So then it wasn't, you had that community, she had that community while you were gone. It wasn't totally, uncomfortable for her.
Exactly. Yeah. Seeking that out, to the best of your ability is vital.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Go out there, make friends, build community. 100%. I want to talk a little bit about how we met online, that you're doing kind of a FIRE type strategy through life. Talk about that a little bit, because that's not a topic that I've had on the podcast yet, and I think being in the military lends itself uniquely to use that strategy and pursue that. So I kind of want to hear about how you got into FIRE, the Financial Independence to Retire Early movement, and kind of what it's doing for you and how it's changing your mindset and gears.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you that the military lifestyle does uniquely lend itself to an interest in personal finance on its own, and then FIRE specifically. So I'll go, I guess, just chronologically. When I joined, like most 18, 19-year-olds, I had gotten my first credit card, and of course I maxed it out, and I had just trash jobs. They were enjoyable, but I wasn't getting paid anything. So not only one credit card, but I think I got a Macy's card, a Penny's card. I had a defaulted bill here, I just didn't know how to adult. And so I screwed my credit up. I let things go into default. Couldn't pay. I needed to have my transmission replaced. I couldn't pay for it. So I had to have a family member front me. I was all told, to me, it seemed like a lot, but $6,000 probably in the hole.
Yeah.
So my first couple of paychecks in the military went to just clear the slate. And then I was left with at zero, but with a pretty horrible credit score and credit history. And from then on, I just try to kind of use the resources that were available to start learning about how to be an adult with my money. And then the FIRE thing came later. At EOD, I remember I was really just worried about how do I repair this credit history? Because we kind of tie that to a little bit. Not sure that we should, but we tie that a little bit to our self-worth. That's embarrassing. Not now, because I realize that plenty of folks make the same goofy mistakes because we're not necessarily taught. So I went out and somebody told me, get a secured credit card and start paying your bills on time. So I did that. And then
a secured credit card?
Secured credit card. So basically it's collateralized, right?
Okay.
So you take $500 in cash that you've built up, you give it over to the bank and they'll give you a secured credit card with that amount of a line of credit. But they already have your $500, so they can't really lose in this situation. And this is one thing that that is advisable if somebody is really trashed their credit to where they can't get a normal credit card. This is a way to start building it back up.
It's almost like a debit card, but you get to build credit using it. Right.
Yeah. When you look at the credit bureaus, it still says pays as agreed, so that you can start slowly to fix the previous mistakes. So yeah, that was the first good move. And then after my wife and I got married, we went back to the States, maybe 6 months later, just to visit family. And we had a great visit, and we're all at the airport. Of course, the family comes to see us off. It's the first time we're leaving as a couple back to Italy, and it's probably going to be a year or so until we see them again. So everybody's there sending us off, and we get up to the ticket counter, and they say that she can't come with us because her visa hasn't been sorted out, and she doesn't have a return ticket back. So yeah, a return ticket back cost $2,000, and I didn't have it, and my credit limit wasn't that high either. So I had to humble myself and ask my father-in-law, who's 19-year-old daughter I had just asked to move to Italy with me for a loan. And in fact, I don't even think I asked. I think he just offered it. But talk about humbling. Yeah. So that kind of fast tracked me too on the savings aspect of it. And I got into like Dave Ramsey. I know on Twitter, he's pretty popular topic right now. But at the time I was like a Dave Ramsey. I was getting into the stuff that he puts out, Susie Orman, like the mainstream type of finance gurus.
Yeah.
And then when I made E6, I don't know how they do it in the other services, but we have like leadership training as we promote that's required to actually put on the next rank. So I was in transition between one unit and the next when I got selected. So most of the people had already gone through this training by the time I got to my base. So I actually got to do a one-on-one with a senior chief, a Navy E8, and we spent about half the day going through the required curriculum. And I'm not sure what I said that prompted him to start talking about this, but we spent the other half the day talking about personal finance. And he gave me a book called The Boglehead's Guide to Investing.
The Boglehead's Guide to Investing?
The Boglehead's Guide to Investing. Pretty cool book. Maybe a little like, I consider it like intermediate level. It's not a beginner finance book, but if you already have the basics down, you got a little bit of emergency savings, you want to start learning how to invest. That's a cool book to check out. So I dove into that, and we started building up like, tens of thousands of dollars, which felt crazy. A lot of money, and learning how to invest it efficiently. And but as I was building up net worth, I was kind of worried, like, am I doing this right? So I went and talked to they call them PFMs, personal financial managers or counselors, basically at the Fleet and Family Service Center. The Navy offers this as a resource to sailors. I went and talked to him and just kind of gave him my financial plan. I had my wife come with me to kind of keep us on the same page. Cool. And he rolled me into the Command Financial Specialist program. And basically you go through a week of training, super basic stuff, and then you train the rest of your command, and they can come to you when they have money questions. So that's when I really started becoming a super money nerd. And then after that duty station, we had just had our first kid. We had like a monetary target. I want to have XX in the bank before we have a kid. So we hit that, felt kind of secure financially, and then got orders to a ship, and I deployed. Lucky wife, right? 5-month-old baby, husband's gone. At that point, I don't think she had gotten her job yet. We had just moved. Yeah, she's a saint, man.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But on that deployment, I stumbled across this blog called Early Retirement Extreme, written by a guy named Jacob Lund-Fisker. And this was my first exposure to FIRE. This was 5 years ago, I suppose, at this point. Yeah. To financial independence and retire early. And I just thought, this is crazy, but it's doable. This is something like I don't necessarily have to work until I'm 60. I had been thinking about, I save and invest pretty well. I'm probably going to retire early, like in my 50s, maybe 55. But looking at the math, I figured out that I could actually probably mostly retire by the time I leave the military. I'd be 39.
That's crazy.
Which just blew my mind. And I, of course, started talking to my wife about it. And like anything, like I came out of the gate, guns blazing, super excited. This is what we're doing. And it took her a little while to be convinced. There's another blog that is called Mr. Money Mustache.
Yeah.
And he doesn't even call himself a personal finance blog. He calls it a lifestyle blog. Basically just setting up your life to optimize for efficiency so that you don't really need a lot to live on.
Yeah.
So there are all kinds of FIRE, but the FIRE that we're pursuing is basically the lifestyle that we have now or better is funded by the time that I leave the military. And that's all based off of passive income from our investments. And of course, the military pension is going to be a huge part of that, being able to make it to 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you learn and when you see what other people are doing, like, retiring early, at 39 or whatever, like, yeah, if you have a pension, that seems doable, but there's a lot of sacrifice that comes with that strategy, like,
sure.
You're not like spend $1 here, spend $1 there. Like, you're tracking it. And so, yeah, you're sacrificing now, but you're reaping the rewards later on to have that freedom and that time, totally free to do whatever you want, and so, yeah, I respect anybody that's going to give that a shot. 'Cause I know it takes a lot of work and a lot of patience and sacrifice. So that's awesome, man. Did you read, you said you started with, Dave Ramsey a little bit. Did you read the Total Money Makeover book?
I read the Total Money Makeover. I watched the Susie Orman show like religiously way back in the beginning. I actually don't have the original copy that I had of that book. I sold a guy a car and he told me, I can pay your asking price, but it's everything that I have right now. So I dropped $500 off the price and I left that copy of that book in the glove compartment and told him he needs to read it. So I hope wherever he is now that he found some value out of the book.
Yeah.
Because as far as like a basic starting point, politics aside, I know he's getting some bad press.
I don't know what he's doing right now. I have no idea.
I haven't really seen what it's about. I just see, Twitter doesn't like him right now, but
Twitter doesn't like anybody.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, it was a cool place to start. But then really getting into like you mentioned the sacrifice, right? The sacrifice it would take to save enough and invest enough to actually be able to retire by something like your 30s or your 40s. And that's why I really love the Mr. Money Mustache blog that I devoured. It took one deployment, man, 4 months, which was the length of our patrol. And I had read everything that he'd written for years and years and years. Because his message basically is that no, it doesn't, because the things that make us happy in life really don't cost all that much. And if you just realign the money that you save for things that you actually value, the little like tagline that I use now for Wild Frugal Free is put your monies where your values are, then I think a lot of people will find that like the new BMW maybe doesn't bring us as much happiness as we thought it did, or the designer clothes. And if those are the things that really do bring you happiness, then yes, put your money there and find somewhere else to cut your expenses.
Yeah. Yeah. So, something that continues to come up recently is the hedonic adaptation, I don't know, phrase, term, where like, yeah, something might make you happy, but like you buy a BMW and it makes you really happy for like a couple of days, and then like the happiness level kind of just dwindles back to the baseline, and then you just kind of keep like buying something new to get that little jump in happiness or whatever you want to call it. But in the end, like you just have to keep buying stuff in order to get that, that feeling, which is
right, chasing that like dopamine high.
Yeah. So,
which in the end probably leaves you less satisfied than when you had started with the first purchase anyway, at least in my experience.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, I really like what you said, and that you put Dave Ramsey's book in the glove box. I have given that book out more times than any other book. And it was very significant for me. But I also think at some point, honestly, you graduate from it, because it's like everybody kind of finds their own strategy and what they want to focus on. I think Dave Ramsey's an awesome foundation, and reading that Total Money Makeover book is like a great foundation. But I think you then kind of, once you have that baseline understanding, you kind of determine how much risk you want to take and what strategies you want to take from like this person and that person to make your own strategy. But I'm a big advocate for like every, 17, 18, 19-year-old that joins the military, it should be required reading. And I don't
Yeah.
really know why it's not, but I'll give that book out a million times over.
That's one thing that I think investing in is worth it every time, even if whatever that copy is never makes it back to you. Is a good self-development book for me as a money nerd. The personal finance ones are a favorite, but any book that can change your life that you can then pass it on to somebody else, I'll buy them over and over again, man.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. So I know you're kind of like, you're trying to share your journey within F.I.R.E and within, the military kind of thing. And what do you like, what are you hoping to provide people within your YouTube channel and your Instagram? Just showing that it's possible, or like what are you hoping to show?
Yeah, so we're kind of in our infancy, and I'm sure that will evolve as I go along. But the internet personalities, the people that are sharing their own stories out there, are what got my family and me motivated about F.I.R.E, that showed us that it is a possibility, and then provided also some of the education, just the basics, that made it actionable. Because seeing somebody do it is great, but having somebody tell you how they did it, and then being able to compare that to other situations of folks that have made it has been able to take me what works from this person and what works from this person and put that into action in our life, so that we come to the strategy that works this year, and then continue to tweak it as we learn. So just putting back out into the interwebs, into the atmosphere, those things that have been helpful to us as we are along the path, and just to share the things that we learn along the way as we continue.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, I think just documenting, I started this because I started listening to Gary Vee a lot, and I'm sure maybe you're familiar.
I like Gary Vee.
Yeah, and just like documenting what you do. I'm like, well, my life isn't that interesting, but it is interesting to some people, and
right. We think that, but
we get jaded to our own experiences.
Right, like the hedonic adaptation you were talking about, like it's just kind of commonplace to us. But if I look back to the 19-year-old me that didn't really know where he was going in life, I wouldn't have painted this picture of the life that I have, the places that I've been. I did a little count earlier this week, 29 countries, man. Wow. I've been to 29 different countries in the last 12 years. I didn't know that was in store for me. I know I mentioned kind of when I started to get into personal finance, seeing a $10,000 balance in my bank account blew my mind.
Yeah.
And then as we progress in our journey, now that I know like pretty much anything is possible if you want to chase it for long enough, we've been able to multiply that into where seeing the first 6 figures in net worth, and then continuing to multiply that. Just being able to see that that's possible, especially when it's not like we're doing anything difficult or complex. It's not like we're making a ton of money out here. I've had success in the military, and I feel like they compensate me comfortably, for sure. I'm grateful for all the financial opportunity that we've had. And like you said, it's easy to kind of live a low expense lifestyle as long as you make those choices in the military.
Yeah.
Anybody with an average sort of lifestyle can do this.
Yeah, absolutely. You've mentioned a couple times the resources that you've either used or like become within the military.
Sure.
And you and I know that there are a tremendous amount of resources aside from, your typical job resources and the gym. Like there are resources for everything on base or just like within that military network. That I think a lot of people just, I don't know if they don't consider it. They don't think about, like, I don't know why they don't use it as much as, the military supports it kind of thing. What has your experience been? I mean, like, how do you feel like you can, and we can get people to use those resources, those, financial planners and, future planners that are going to help you kind of make the right decisions and guide you kind of thing?
Sure. So for those that have either used or become those resources, just talking about it, like anything that's kind of connected to ego, is a little bit of a stigma, right? We want to act like we have everything figured out, but sometimes we just don't. And the very best thing we can do is admit it to ourselves first, and then admit it to somebody that can actually help us onto the path that we want to be on. There's really no value in pretending like you have it all figured out, just to remain ignorant. So for those that have done that, sharing their experience,
Yeah.
it took a little, like I had to swallow my pride a little bit the first time that I wanted to help somebody, ask somebody for help for money advice. But it was a great decision, and it opened up a whole new level of thinking that I hadn't considered. And each decision after that, where I go and find a new resource or utilize a new resource, and they're free. So why wouldn't I? Once you get past the, I don't know, the psychological barrier of, I don't know everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one of the reasons that it was important to me to become and maintain my certification as a command financial specialist with the Navy. Because a lot of times we call them collateral duties, these programs that are resources for sailors. A lot of times you'll take a collateral duty and you'll do it for a year. You'll put it on your evaluation to show that you did it, and then you move on to something else. And I've done that with some, right? Because it's good to have a working knowledge of all the programs that we offer for sailors. But this one, till the day I retire, and even past then, is one that I'm going to be involved in. I don't care what my title is, or what a piece of paper says as far as who's in charge of it. This is something I'll always be talking to sailors and other service members about, because it has the potential to have such impact on sailors' peace of mind, and then what they get out of the military.
Yeah.
Or life.
100%, dude. 100%. I like what you said about like humbling yourself, because I mean, accepting and seeking out help requires a level of humility, to acknowledge that, like, I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea. Like, I don't know what I don't know. And it's the people that are willing to humble themselves, acknowledge that, and, acknowledge it publicly, that are gonna move forward and excel. As long as you keep thinking you know everything, then you're not going to learn anything, and so I think that's
Agreed.
a critical component, whether it be in finances, your career. It doesn't even matter what category you put it in, it remains true.
Yeah, I find that what has connected most with other people that are trying to learn about money is not sharing my successes as much as sharing the boneheaded moves that I made, because that's what's relatable, and we've all done it. It's nothing really to be ashamed or embarrassed about, but if you want to start moving ahead, then you got to take the first step.
Yeah. Yes. Very true. Very true. I'm curious. Did you say you graduated? You got your undergraduate done? Yeah.
So just last year, which I guess it took me like 10 years from the start, from when I started with my associate's degree study.
One day at a time, man. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thanks. Courtesy of the United States military. It was completely TA funded, right? Tuition assistance. So,
awesome.
I got my bachelor's of science in finance, and now I'm looking at master's programs.
Cool. Well, who'd you do it through?
University of Maryland.
University of Maryland. So all online, I imagine.
Everything online, especially with kids. That flexibility has been key.
Yeah.
And with that, it's really just what you make it. The information's all there. So as much as you want to apply yourself to learn it, is what you'll get out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I am, dude, I'm all about, I have a video on YouTube about like using tuition assistance and FAFSA. Like to not be chipping away at school while you're on active duty is, if getting a degree is something you want, you should be starting as soon as possible while you're in, even one class at a time. And like, heck, 10 years later, dude, who cares if it took you 10 years, like whatever, you're done. It was free, and you're way ahead of your peers now, Yeah.
So from E4 to E6, promotion in the Navy is based on a point system. And your evals play in, the test score that you have plays in, any awards, but a very small one is your education points. And what made me an E6, because I didn't come out on the official release, because I was shy, 2 points. And those 2 points I had just earned. They weren't part of my record yet, but I had just earned them, and I was entitled to them via my associate's degree. So it gave me a promotion. It was definitely worth the time, man. I should calculate the amount of money that I've gotten by not delaying that promotion another year. Because I'm sure it's quite a bit.
Yeah, dude, I love it. And I've said this a couple times, that the things that will get you promoted in the military will get you hired out of the military. So
For sure.
regardless of whether or not you're pursuing success in the military, out of the military, with the exception of running a fast 3 mile, like granted, that's not going to really get you a job outside the military. But those education benefits, pursuing that education, pursuing just personal development and growth and, maturity, like those are the things that are going to get you recognized, get you promoted or hired once you get out. And so, I think that's a perfect example of like pursuing education, not knowing what you're going to do with it, but it got you a promotion and it's assisted you in growing in your military career. So yeah, I'm all about it. If the end goal is to the FIRE movement, retire from active duty and get that pension, are you pursuing a commission because that would in the next 8 years would provide a better pension, or what's your thought process with that?
That's a loaded question. Specifically for me, I think that pursuing a commission is something that every enlisted person should look at if they have the desire to stay in the military for 20 plus years, for sure, or even not. It's a really, really good opportunity. The extra money, the extra leadership experience, because you can lead at a different level when you become an officer and vice like a senior enlisted person. However, for me, I was accepted to a program called Seaman to Admiral 21. It's an enlisted commissioning program where basically you ship off to school, finish your bachelor's degree, go to like a fork and knife type of school in Newport, Rhode Island, and then you commission. Really, really great program for any Navy folks that are listening. Stay 21 is an awesome opportunity. So I was selected to become a surface warrant officer. Unfortunately, the medical screening process of that comes afterward, and I wasn't able to get a waiver for my vision. An injury in my left eye leaves me with pretty poor vision and no depth perception. So unsurprisingly, they don't want me to drive warships, which I can completely understand now. So I was dropped from that program. And then just a couple years later, I became a chief in the Navy. And as time goes on and I get closer to my 20-year mark, with that goal being financial independence, maybe less retire early for us, but financial independence, having the option if I want to not have to tie myself to a job for money. That 20-year mark is kind of precious to me. My son, when I'm retirement eligible at 20 years, is going to be 13, my oldest son, and then my youngest son, 10. If I were to be accepted for a commission program now, it pushes me past that 20 years. And at this point in time, that's not what I'm looking for. Not to say that I won't stay in the military longer if we're in a good like family environment still. Like right now, I have no complaints, but there are sacrifices involved. I spent a lot of my son's first 3 years deployed. So for that reason, right now, I'm not pursuing a commission because at 20 years, I want to have the option to say it's been a great ride, but I'm all set, or not.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah, right on. That makes sense. It is a bummer, like because it's like you're already in the military. What the heck does my eyesight matter for being an officer? Like give me a different job. So that can be discouraging for sure.
Yeah. And the pipeline was tied specifically for me because I applied for the surface warfare officer community. It was tied specifically to that job. There are other options now that I could pursue. Another part of it that I didn't mention is the Navy's pretty unique as far as the transition from E6 to E7. Being accepted into the Chief's Mess is a pretty big deal. And there's a very different leadership style and level of leadership if you were to leave the Chief's Mess and become an officer. I really like the deck plate leadership that I'm able to do as a chief. And so if I'm thinking about impact, me staying enlisted and leading as a chief or maybe a senior chief one day, or who knows, maybe a command master chief, which is like our senior enlisted advisors at a unit level. A lot of those people when I was young in the Navy are the ones that kind of set me on the right path. If I could be that for somebody else, that would be pretty awesome, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The leadership ability it's just different. It's like kind of hard to explain why it's different. But there's a line where it's like the senior enlisted still interact and find themselves with the young enlisted a bit. Who knows what the officers are doing sometimes.
Yeah, I mean they have to keep the whole mission in mind at all
Yeah.
times,
Yeah.
and certainly I think we got tons of great officers that are out there not only looking out for junior enlisted at their level, but also mentoring them. In fact, I've had plenty of officers that have, just like my senior enlisted, been really good, not only like military mentors for me, but life mentors, and some of my
Yeah.
very best friends that are family at this point.
Yeah.
But there is like it's being senior enlisted, it's like a high touch type of leadership. You're there, you're actually doing on the deck. That's why they call it deck plate leadership, right?
Mm.
You're on the deck plates, which is like the flooring of the ships. You're right there with the folks, and that's pretty fulfilling for me.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Good for you. Yeah, man, I like to close out with, some of the same kind of closing questions to get kind of a, big picture and try to help people where we can. So, given that you've re-enlisted a couple times at this point and seem to be enjoying it, I never want to assume, but do you have any regrets in joining the Navy in the first place?
No, not at all. You think about like the butterfly effect, right? Had I not made that decision, um, who knows where I would be today?
Yeah.
And certainly, I think that I could have found success through other avenues, but life's working out pretty well for us, and I wouldn't change a thing. I think the Navy and the opportunities that the Navy has given myself and my family has been a huge part of that. So if
Yeah.
somebody's looking for an adventure that can lead to family stability and a whole lot of options,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a good choice, man.
Yeah. So, you kind of answered the second question. Would you recommend it? Have you recommended it to others, younger brother, cousin, anything like that?
Yeah. So we've talked offline that my younger brother is considering enlisting right now. We're 13 years separated, so he's 18. He's a senior in high school now, and we're having this conversation right now. It's a case by case basis. I've talked to other young folks that end up joining the military. Sometimes they love it, and like me, it's one of the best decisions they've ever made. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's just not necessarily suited to them, or they just didn't have a good go of it their first command. It happens. So I'd say do your research, kind of know what you're getting into and what you expect. Have a realistic expectation of where you're going to end up. Not everybody that goes for a SEAL contract ends up as a SEAL or any other job in the Navy, right? I thought I was going to be a legalman, and that didn't work out for me, mostly because I decided I didn't want to be a legalman. But yeah, it'll bring you in some crazy directions. Being flexible is important. But I think if you've done your homework and you still think that it's a good opportunity, whether you do 4 or like me, make it something that you want to do for 20 plus years. Yeah, it's a great decision.
Yeah. Awesome. I like to paint a picture of, the best day versus the worst day in somebody's, career. It doesn't have to be like on the job specifically, but one that you can directly tie to you joining the military. And so, like, what is, a highlight day that you've had because of the military, and a and a not so ideal day that you've had because of the military?
Sure. I'll probably separate the first one, the best day. So connected directly to the military, the best day was definitely the day that I put on anchors. It represents like a pretty big transition point in my career, and getting to that point and being able to, like I said, step into the shoes of on the khaki side and into the Chiefs mess, I think really opens me up to provide a lot of value added impacts for the second half of my career. So yeah, that was a huge day. I was out to sea on the flight deck with a couple of the guys that had made chief for me up in front of the whole command. Unfortunately, my family couldn't be there because we were deployed, but that was a very proud day. And I feel kind of blessed and humbled and lucky that I get to go and do that job every single day.
Yeah.
Awesome. And just kind of challenge myself to earn those anchors every time that I put them on. That's just on the military side. On the whole life side of things, it's not really about a single day. If I had to think about, when I think about that question, I don't picture a single day. I picture the whole environment that I've been able to set up for my wife and I, for now our 2 boys, the stability, the experiences that we've had. I've just been afforded the opportunity to build what I would consider a really beautiful life for our family. And a lot of that had to do with the Navy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the best.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. All right, let's see. So let's hear the other side of that coin. Just so we keep it all real, because there's obviously some downsides.
I'm hard pressed to list this as the worst, and I'm going to separate the question. I might be cheating here, but I'm going to separate the question again. Right. Strictly military and then whole life.
I like it.
I'm hard pressed to answer this way just because of the after effects, but injuring my eye, and to no one else's fault but my own. I was using a tool with no eye protection that ended up in me losing a lot of vision in my eye. Took away some opportunities that when those opportunities were taken away, it was a big gut check and it hurt. Yeah. However, in the whole scheme of things, they've driven me toward other opportunities that I think I'm happier with. And I'm certainly grateful for. So that was a rough day, and some of the follow-on things kind of sucked.
Yeah.
But in the end, all is well that ends well. And then the worst part on the whole picture type of deal is being away from home.
Yeah.
The being away from my immediate family, from my wife and my sons when I have to deploy, because that is part of it. That's what we sign up for. And as much fun as we have when we go deploy, we leave a whole family at home and they got to do everything by themselves. Like I said, my wife is a saint because she's got to run the whole household, man.
Yeah.
And with at the time a 5-month-old, and then over the years now with 2 when I leave, she's got to deal with all that. So I'm very lucky, but that's one of the harder parts. And then being an overseas sailor for so long, we also have left our larger family back home, my parents, her parents and aunts and uncles, and separating our children from that broader family is a hard decision to make. Something that we wrestle with each time that we're looking for orders or even considering re-enlisting.
Yeah.
So that part of it is the sacrifice. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, totally understandable. And it's kind of like, there's two sides to that coin. Like living abroad is so unique for, a kid to grow up that way. But they also don't get that family kind of experience from grandparents and uncles and stuff. So yeah, that can definitely be difficult. So it's I hear you.
We're super lucky that we can do things like this though, because we call up our parents all the time and sisters and brothers, so we can still be part of each other's lives. So thankful for that. I can't imagine having done this 20 years ago.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, we are very fortunate, even in those difficult aspects. We're very fortunate. I'm curious for words of wisdom or advice that you'd give to anybody. Maybe they're about to ship off to boot camp or something like that. What are your 2 cents that you'd provide them?
I think that the most beneficial thing that you can do for yourself is to find your tribe and a mentor that is doing what you want to do at the next level. It's really easy, especially early on. And I'd imagine we kind of talked about this offline, and I'd imagine it's the same in the civilian world. It's easy to kind of fall in and follow. So make sure that you fall in and follow with a crowd that's going to actually advance your life, as opposed to somebody that's going to either hold you back or maybe even cause some issues. Awesome. So finding good mentors and friends that have positive values that'll help you advance yourself and are encouraging you instead of holding you back. That's the key, man.
Yeah, totally 100% agree. Yeah. What is it? Bad company corrupts good morals or something like that. And it can happen quicker than you think. So unfortunately so. Yeah. Awesome, man.
But the opposite is true as well.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Thanks for clarifying that. Well, thank you, man. I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you sharing your story and, spreading the good word about financial literacy and helping people make those good choices. Cause I think like I said, joining the military right out of high school, could easily set you up for financial stability and success. Even if you don't do 20, you just do 4. So
yeah. Don't be afraid to be a little bit weird and to, look at some other life options.
Yeah, 100%. Where can people find more about you as you kind of continue your journey in FIRE and help others?
Sure. So I mentioned that we started a YouTube channel where we're trying to both share our journey and some of the lessons that we've learned along the way. So that's Wild Frugal Free on YouTube, and then Instagram as well at Wild Frugal Free. Post up there pretty much daily, and certainly happy to connect with anybody that wants to talk about personal finance or just bettering your life.
Awesome. Cool, man. Well, Roman, I appreciate you coming on. Thanks for connecting, and looking forward to seeing where your career takes you and where your life takes you.
Thanks, Jason. It was fun, man.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that episode with Roman. Really awesome guy. A lot to share, a lot that we can learn from him in his financial journey. And I think, like we said in the episode, that the military lends itself very well to creating a financial foundation, and especially pursuing FIRE. If you're going to make a lifelong career out of the military, it lends itself very well to that. So I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. If you guys want more information on Roman and his journey, Wild Frugal Free is his handle, both on Instagram and on YouTube. So I would definitely recommend checking him out. I will link him below. But I hope you guys enjoyed that episode, and I will see you guys next time.